Jewish mystical teachings, they're on fire. So many people that are not even Jewish are intrigued by it, looking for it, want to have it a part of their lives. What makes mystical so intriguing? Well, perhaps, when you look at the world, it used to be what you see is what you get. Now we know that there's so much more. It's so much deeper, so much more profound creation. What you see is not what you get. So people want to see more, to know more. In the physical world, you look under a microscope, wow, subatomic one, amazing. And you go deeper, seeing the molecules that they're made of, atoms, and so on. So there's something more profound and deeper that doesn't meet the eye. So therefore the mystical is part of that, but doesn't meet the eye. And therefore a great intrigue. Today more than ever, as the Zohar actually says about the flood of Noah, which is the flood of Noah, which is not only historical truth, but it's a teachings that the Zohar says that the flood was in the 600th year of Noah's life. Well, it says the Zohar in the 6,000th millennia, which means in the year 6th millennia rather, in the 600th year, which is approximately 1840 in the Gregorian calendar, there will be a flood. But this one will be a flood of wisdom. Heavenly wisdom from above, like the rains came down from above, and then heavenly wisdom from below, not heavenly, earthly wisdom from below, it's earthly, from below, and the two will come to merge. So the mysticism and the wisdom of the sciences are coming to merge. That's where we're headed. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We continue our discussion in the 26th letter. In this letter, Alter Rebbe quotes from the Zohar that from a superficial reading of the letter, or from the teachings of the Zohar, one would perhaps make a mistake, easily make a mistake, and think that only the mystical teachings of the Torah are the tree of life, whereas the do's and the don'ts, meaning pure, impure, kosher, not kosher, valid, invalid, the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Talmud, and the like, that it is an expression of the tree of good and evil, because it's got a mixture of good and evil in it. So yesterday we gave some arguments, or the Alter Rebbe gave some arguments, to counter that notion that that's not how you should understand the teachings of this Zohar. Today we continue with that, with more arguments that all of the Torah, the do's and the don'ts, even the arguments back and forth in the Talmud that may not even be a conclusion of the law, well, helps to lead to the conclusion, but may not be part and parcel of the final law, is also part of the tree of life. In other words, any part of the Torah that you learn will be an expression of God's life that he gives us, that we can have the tree of life in our lives. So he continues with the argument that there's a lack of understanding of what the Zohar is saying. Again, that all of the Torah is an expression of the tree of life, and not only the mystical component, the Zohar and the like, but all parts. And so, for example, in the times of Mashiach, well then, when there will be, then the tree of life will be the source of vitality, as opposed to presently. Presently, the tree of knowledge and good and evil is. Because everything in this world is a mixture. There's no good without bad, there's no bad without good. Why? Because what's animating the world today is klipa, the shell that covers over on the divinity. Mashiach means that that shell will no longer be covered over, will be covering rather, on the divine force, divine energy and light of God that is animating me, animating everything of the universe, and the presence of God will be very clear and obvious. So, therefore you might think, well, then I don't need the do's and the don'ts, but no. Still, we'll need to know, for example, the ritual prohibition and permission of impurity and purity. People will need to know that. How will a person, for example, slaughter sacrifices and without knowing the law? Is the person going to be like born with the innate capability of slaughtering properly, to bring offerings, to eat something kosher? Not going to be an innate knowledge in that. It's something that's going to be learned. So that means you need to learn those laws. Well, if in the times of Mashiach, what's animating the world is a tree of life, so then this must be also the expression of a tree of life. We need to know the practical laws. Also regarding, the fats and the bloods, there's prohibitions against these things. They will still be effective in times of Mashiach, so that means we need to learn them in order to know them. So likewise, a woman who gives birth, and there will be, as the Torah tells us, laws concerning the giving of birth, and so on. So we need to know. So the Alter Rebbe says there's no need to dwell on something that's obvious. That even in the times of Mashiach, the laws of prohibited, permitted, pure, impure, need to be learned. Therefore, it must be that these teachings are not an expression of the tree of good and evil, an expression of a mixture of good and evil in it. No, it has to be the tree of life. Further, as the Talmud actually itself says, that certain laws, well, this will be only in the times of Mashiach, and it's laws not, when we speak about mysticism, we're not speaking about laws, we're talking about the mystical component. But this is a law for times of Mashiach. There's sometimes a doubt in or not a conclusion in the Jewish law, in the halacha, and it says, the Talmud tells us, well, in the future, Elijah will come, in the future, time right before Mashiach, times of Mashiach, and he will clarify all the things that we don't have clarity now. Not everything in the Talmud do we have an adjudication of the law, great clarity in everything. There are some things that will only be clarified when Elijah the prophet comes. So then, of course, if we're bringing clarity to it, that means it is something that's going to be learned. That means, as in times of Mashiach, the impurities of the world will be removed. Of the world they'll be removed, but not the questions and the discussion and the teachings of the Torah will be removed, and the laws of the do's and don'ts, they will remain. Likewise, from the cursory reading of the Zohar, where the Zohar said that the Torah scholars are sustained by the illiterate, so it sounded like, oh, that's why they had to learn these laws of the do's and the don'ts, because if they're being sustained by the illiterate, they have to make sure that the illiterate are, doing what they need to do. So, first of all, not all were sustained by the illiterate, and therefore they had to make sure that they studied and studied with the illiterate these laws. There are many great scholars who had their own property. They took care of themselves. They didn't have someone else take care of them. And so if they had their own property and they were yet learning the laws of permitted, not permitted, and what's to do, how to, to till this, to deal with the land appropriately according to Jewish law, even though they didn't have someone who was illiterate that they either had to teach them or make them aware. They had their own land, so therefore, why did they study those laws? Most of the esoteric mystical teaching at that time was held in secret, but they would teach their disciples, where they had thousands, tens of thousands of disciples. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 disciples. And yet, what they learned were these particular laws, even though they didn't need it in order to guarantee that, things were done properly on their property. They had their own property, they did it themselves, yet they studied these laws in great depth. Why? If it's only like a means to an end so you can make sure that things are done properly, no, the laws are not a means to an end only. The adjudication of the law is also not just a means to an end. Let me when Torah is a tree of life, so then the study itself is an end in itself. If the Torah is only the tree of good and evil, so then it's only to bring the good out of it from the negativity in order that you know how to lead your life. So it's only a means to an end, but it's not. Torah is not a means to an end. It's an end in itself because it's the tree of life. So what we're learning now, even if there might not be a practical distinction in our lives, or something very concrete that might emerge from it. It doesn't, we want something concrete to emerge from the teachings, but it doesn't take away from the teachings, because the teachings themselves is an expression of the tree of life. And therefore hold on to it, because when you hold on to the tree of life, guess what? You have life. When you study Torah, any aspect of Torah, not just Tanya. Tanya, it's more obvious, the tree of life. But any aspect of Jewish law, studying the Talmud and the arguments back and forth that sometimes seem like splitting a hair. And actually, it is splitting the hair, often. But when you understand that it's an end in itself, it's an expression of the tree of life, amazing. And the learning of it is very different. Lisa, thank you. Thank you. Okay, any questions, any comments, any thoughts? All right, may you have a speedy recovery. Welcome, Estrella, Eva, Levi, John, Vida, Liba, Deborah, Zar, Mordechai, Manan, Anthony, all right, thank you, Anthony. Who else is with us? All right. Cindy and Abilawa, Alicia, Jared. Thank you. I look forward to. Mark Luzzatto and Moshe. Beautiful. I have Celeste, Michael. Michael, how are you? Vilma, Rachel, and Coy, and Alice, Chaim, Natalis, Amy, and all right. I don't see any questions here. Denise. All right, folks. Actually, there's going to be Rambam now right away. I have a bris, so I have just a few extra minutes. We will continue our discussion about mysticism and its unique place in today's world. We will continue our conversation. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you, Chabad. Zichron Kadesh Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a great day and an amazing good Shabbos.